two formidable conferences between the two entities. There's also reports that the Big 12 is looking to survive and add 4 to 6 of the remaining Pac-12 teams. The report mentions Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Washington, and Oregon. For me, I think it's more likely that Washington and Oregon go to the Big 10 now that the wheels have been set in motion there, but those other ones certainly make sense for either one of those conferences. I mean, Colorado used to be in the Big 12 itself. Utah geographically is right there, and Arizona State, again, not far geographically from some of the Big 12 schools. Interestingly enough, maybe this is just a geographic thing, but Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State were not mentioned in those reports. There's some debate over to what extent talks have happened and which schools are actually interested in going and which schools the conference is actually interested in. The article I read on Yahoo also mentions the Mountain West as a possibility for Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State. In that case, that's a huge step down for them, but it might go a ways towards bringing the Mountain West up a level with some more well-known college programs in there, joining the likes of, Boise State, San Diego State. And there was also rumors that Stanford and Cal might be looking at the Big Ten as well. We'll have to see where that shakes out. There's also reports that the Pac-12 is looking to expand as well as it starts negotiating this new media rights deal like I mentioned earlier. I've seen San Diego State geographically makes sense, and SMU rumored as potential teams. I guess SMU makes some sense, not the closest geographically to those teams, but it's a good try for a rising program. Geographically, some teams that would make some more sense would be Boise State, Colorado State, Air Force, Wyoming, Fresno State, Utah State, the New Mexico schools. Maybe you get North Dakota State. I know North Dakota State is more Big Ten-ish territory, or might even make more sense in the Big 12 if they're going to move up a level. But I think Pac-12 could do a lot worse than reaching out to the loyal program in Fargo there. Anyway, rapid expansion is happening and it's going to continue to happen. The Big 10 and the SEC are expected to emerge as the two super conferences with about 25 teams per conference. The other conferences will have to adapt and survive, but for me, it's not going to be for long because those super conferences are going to take the majority of the big brand teams, the tradition teams, and you're going to be left with something that's a step above the FCS, mostly when all is said and done. ESPN has also released its odds for the teams to make the college football playoff this year. I'll read off a little bit of it. I'm not going to go into all of it. It was a very long list, but I just found some of the stuff ridiculous. At the top, it makes sense. Ohio State with what they're bringing back, although you don't necessarily know what you're getting in those receivers, even though you kind of do after watching them in the Rose Bowl last year. They lead the way at 82.7%. Alabama and Georgia are both over 70%. And Clemson comes in fourth at 57.4%. Notre Dame fifth at 18.8%. Texas is sixth at 18%. Michigan 17.8%. And Oklahoma at 11.4%. Miami at 8.9%. That's as far as I'm going to go because it's that little Clemson to Miami spot that has me bothered a little bit. Because we're basically just playing the same game we play every preseason, throwing brand names out there. We used to say it a lot with Michigan. This year it's a little different with Michigan because they were in the college football playoff last year. And even though they're losing some of those players, there are a lot of those same players coming back. And they are the defending Big Ten champs and a college football playoff team until unseated and proven otherwise. So I have no issue with having them there this year. I'm surprised it's that low with the way the media talks them up. But I have no issue with them being on this list as high as they are. I know Clemson has formed a reputation under Dabo Swinney as a juggernaut, but watching Clemson last year, did you really see enough out of them to think that last year was just a one-year thing and that they were going to jump right back into this more than likely going to make the playoff? I get they play in a weak conference. Pittsburgh won the ACC last year, lost a bunch of guys from that team, but they still have a bunch of guys left on that defense that could still play. I don't think Pittsburgh is the main competition in the ACC, but to me, I didn't see enough from Clemson last year, particularly DJ Uiagalelei as a sophomore with experience starting big games as a freshman to make me think that they will bounce right back and be in the playoff hunt this season. I also think Notre Dame is really high. It's nothing against the talent they have, but number one, they're adjusting to a new head coach, which can take some time. I don't worry about Marcus Freeman's ability to be a head coach, but it can take a couple games to adjust to the new coach, especially the way he coaches in the game. They do have a leg up a little bit because he coached their bowl game even though they lost that game, and that's the only game he's coached as an official college head coach. And I know they're going to have more time to be prepared and get ready for the beginning of the season, but they have some big games at the beginning of the year. They're replacing a quarterback, they're replacing a running back, they're replacing a lot of the defense, they're replacing some key guys on the offensive line. Or if they lose some of the big games, or if they lose a couple games they shouldn't, they're right back outside the picture. So is there a chance Notre Dame makes the playoff? Yes, absolutely. Is it the 5th best in the country? I don't think so. Another one of these that I just don't understand is the love for Texas. Yeah, they have a coach that comes from the SEC and has this pedigree as an offensive mind at Washington and at USC, Alabama offensive coordinator. He's brought in some SEC transfers, some Alabama transfers. But what has Texas done in the last 15 years or so to suggest that they're a national contender? They've won one conference championship in that entire time, which was in 2009, so 13 years ago. And for a team that has so much history, yeah, they've had some winning seasons. Yeah, they got a good recruiting classes starting to come in. A lot of people doubt Sarkisian as a coach sometimes. I don't doubt him as much as others, but they're still coming off of a 5-7 season. Most of the recruits that they're talking about are making these classes better won't be on the field this year. The transfers they have, most of them haven't played a lot of college football, and the only given sure thing or the closest thing they have to a sure thing is Bijan Robinson at running back. There's just too many questions there, and in the past 15 years, not the track record of a team you would expect to have the 6th best odds out of 131 Division I teams heading into the season to make the playoff. The last one I have a bit of an issue with is Miami. I mean, did you watch them last year? You're telling me they're the 9th best team headed into the season? They were supposed to be the 10th best team headed into the season last year. How did that work out? They were supposed to have a superstar quarterback last year. How did that work out? Is Tyler Van Dyke really that much better than De'Aaron King? I like Tyler Van Dyke plenty, but with the new coaching staff, and they've basically been a team of underachievers, so yeah, the talent's there. They've had some guys transfer out. Nesta Jade Silvera, a defensive tackle, is a big one there. They've lost a couple guys to the pros. You know, who do they have around Tyler Van Dyke that can make plays? We don't entirely know right now. And to be honest, yeah, Cristobal is a pretty damn good coach, but Miami hasn't been a true contender since the early 2000s, so why are we still acting like this is the same program and giving them championship odds? They haven't even been able to win their conference or really compete for their conference when they're expected to over the past 15, 20 years. Other teams that are listed on that graphic that ESPN put out, Utah has a 6.3% chance. I think they started off slow last year and got rolling and ended up cruising to a Pac-12 championship, I think. I like Cameron Rising, their quarterback, a lot. They lose a couple players on defense, but I think they're a sleeper to steal a playoff spot and get Pac-12 into the playoff for the first time since Washington did back in 2016-17, I believe it was. Oklahoma's biggest obstacle for me is the coaching change to Brent Venables and acclimating those transfers into the system that they're running there. I like the quarterback Dylan Gabriel quite a bit. I'm going to have to take another look at their roster to see who else is coming back, but they should still be a solid team. Historically, over the past few years, they've been the one consistent Big 12 national playoff contender, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on there for being on that list. LSU, Michigan State, Auburn, Penn State, Texas A&M, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Oregon, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Cincinnati, Baylor, Wisconsin, North Carolina State, Wake Forest, and Central Florida were all on the list as potential playoff teams from ESPN as well, although some of those teams had less than a 1% chance according to the graphic. Last thing I'll get to on this is something that kind of bothered me about the 4th of July weekend. I remember growing up, being at like a family 4th of July party, and someone would have baseball games on in the garage. We'd go play baseball out back. If it rained, you go inside, and the dads were basically drinking and watching baseball. This year, I noticed a real lack of national MLB broadcasts on the 4th of July. Like I said, I can remember when ESPN would have marathons on all the summer holidays, including opening day, for people to just watch baseball all day. I get that people are going to be out at barbecues and pool parties and et cetera, and may not have time to sit down and watch the game. That's fine. But the scenarios I just mentioned, the games were on in the background. People want to see good games, especially if you're, a baseball fan. And, people checking it out, walking past the TV and stuff like that. And, no argument against a hot dog eating contest. That can stay. That's fine. But when I was flipping through the channels, the times I was at home looking for baseball games to watch, there were 3 games on MLB Network and nothing on the other sports channels. And to me, that's something that needs to change. I get that the younger generation might think that baseball is kind of a boring game, might not be as enthused by baseball, but ESPN's throwing up televised long games like cornhole and stuff. I'm not saying that can't be aired too, but there's got to be more baseball on the 4th of July. Well, that's all for this week's episode. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, whatever, wherever you're listening from. Tell your friends to check out the show. And again, this is Travis Tyler saying thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back with more sports news next week.